I wasted 5 hours yesterday watching the Paul Tyson boxing match on Netflix, and I'm a huge boxing fan. I often draw comparisons between boxing and tennis since these are two individual sports. And a lot of people were complaining about the quality of the broadcast. There were so many people tuning into this match that Netflix basically broke, and there were streaming problems. And a lot of people didn't realize that Netflix's first live sporting event was the Netflix Slam, Rafa against Alcaraz, and that was absolutely perfect. There were absolutely no problems with the broadcast whatsoever. But of course, there were a lot more people tuning in to the boxing match compared to the tennis match. And as I was watching this, what I would categorize as one of the worst sporting events that I've ever seen, I was trying to draw comparison between what happened yesterday and tennis. And I think I came to a pretty accurate comparison. It would be as if a random college player, let's say someone that plays for a mid-level Division One school, maybe towards the bottom of the lineup or mid lineup, let's say a UTR 11 and a half or 12. So this is going to be a good player, just like Jake Paul is a good boxer. And let's say that this college tennis player would challenge one of the all-time greats who is of a similar age as Mike Tyson. And I was thinking of Boris Becker, who is 56. Mike Tyson is 58. And similar to Tyson, Boris Becker left it all out on the court and pretty much destroyed his body, and he can't really move out there. And let's say that this tennis match was broadcasted to a huge audience, was played on a center court somewhere, and that this was to some extent an official match that counted towards ranking points. If that college player would end up beating Boris Becker, which he probably would because Boris Becker destroyed his body playing tennis and can't really move out there, this would mean absolutely nothing. And that's what was so upsetting about the match yesterday. Even though I don't think that this boxing match tarnished Tyson's legacy, it was just very depressing to watch. And I hope we never get to see something like that in the game of tennis. Another thing that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way were my recent Sinner predictions. And I owe Yannick Sinner an apology. But let me take you through my Sinner predictions in 2024 to clarify why I made the picks that I've made. And I've been very wrong as of late. So, at the beginning of the year, I did pick Sinner to play Djokovic in the semifinals of the Australian Open. And I thought that Djokovic was going to get revenge for the Davis Cup loss. And I picked Djokovic to beat Sinner. That did not happen. I didn't learn my lesson. In Indian Wells, I did correctly pick Alcaraz to beat Sinner in the semifinals. I had a feeling that Alcaraz was in a slump at that moment in time, was going to turn his season around at that moment in time, and he did. He ended up beating Sinner. Then I predicted that Sinner was going to win Miami, but his draw kind of opened up, and he wasn't really challenged at that tournament. When the clay court season came around, Sinner had that doping charge looming over him, but nobody knew about it, and his level did drop off a little bit in that part of the year. So I correctly predicted that Sinner was going to lose to Alcaraz in the French Open semifinals. But I thought that once players got back on the faster surfaces, that it was going to be Sinner time. And I predicted Sinner to win Wimbledon. That did not happen, partially due to the doping charge that was in the back of Sinner's mind, but he was also not feeling well, and he did lose to Medvedev in the quarterfinals of Wimbledon. I then correctly predicted that Sinner was going to win the US Open, and then I made some catastrophic errors in my predictions. See, Sinner has been by far the most dominant player this year. He's playing GOAT level tennis, but for some reason, I was under the impression that Djokovic found his form in Shanghai when he beat Fritz in the semifinals. I thought I saw something in Djokovic there, which gave me belief that he was going to take Sinner out in the final. And he did have some chances in the first set. He was up 5-4, love 30 on Sinner's serve, but Sinner ended up winning in 2 sets. I then got bamboozled by Zverev. I saw him serving absolute bombs in Paris. I saw him practicing after winning matches, and I thought that Zverev was ready to challenge Sinner and Alcaraz. I thought that this was a new Zverev. But as you guys probably know today, the old Zverev came back and he lost to Fritz in the semifinals. So I incorrectly predicted that Zverev was going to take out Sinner in the final of the ATP Finals. And this was a very poor prediction because it turns out that Sinner is on absolute fire right now. See, the thing about Sinner that's so scary regarding the other players is that he continues to get better. In the second game of today's semifinal match against Ruud, Sinner did a drop shot lob combo where he looked like Roger Federer. His hands have gotten so much better. His volleys have gotten so much better. I talked many times how much Sinner has improved his serve. He's one of the best servers in the world. And one thing that Sinner possibly does better than anyone in history is consistently play aggressive shots from defensive positions. See, the big three are capable of hitting the same type of shots that Sinner is hitting. We've all seen crazy winners from Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer on the run. But the consistency at which Sinner hits those shots from the corners is mind-boggling. And his opponent in the final, Taylor Fritz, said exactly that. It's almost as if Sinner doesn't play defense. His defensive shots are offensive shots. And something that Medvedev said about Sinner during the US Open was that in the past, Sinner would have ups and downs like most players, where he would produce some errors. And that's where players like Medvedev, Djokovic, Alcaraz could get a win against Sinner. As I said earlier, there was a period of time for Sinner where he was producing more up and down matches, possibly related to that doping charge. He wasn't playing freely. But it seems to me that as the season is progressing, Sinner is getting more and more consistent, and he is clearly the best player in the world. And I want to give respect to Casper Ruud, who is a phenomenal player. I did talk extensively about Ruud's qualities as a player after he won Barcelona, but he deserves a lot of credit for making the semifinals of the ATP Finals. But on a surface like this, maybe on clay, it would have been a little bit different. He simply was outclassed. Sinner destroyed him 1-2. Now in the other semifinal, Zverev, especially in the first set, was showing some of the old Zverev, where he was a little bit tentative on his forehand side. They showed a graphic after the first set, and there was a discrepancy of 20 miles an hour in average speed between his forehand and his backhand. So that's the old Zverev that doesn't trust his forehand 100%, that doesn't trust his second serve 100%. And he gets just a little bit tentative on those two strokes. And that was definitely the case in the first set against Taylor Fritz. However, Zverev did start playing a lot better in the second set, and the third set was such an even match. It could have gone both ways. Both guys had chances to break each other. It was a 50-50 match that came down to a few points in the tiebreak. So this is a tough loss for Zverev, no doubt about it, but he can be proud of the season. He's going to finish number 2 in the world, which is amazing. And I still believe that Zverev is on the right path to challenge Sinner and Alcaraz in 2025. I think the matchup with Fritz is a tough one for Zverev because Fritz likes exchanging backhands cross-court with Zverev. Fritz also serves well. And Zverev has now lost to Fritz 4 times in a row. So that adds a lot of pressure when you go into an important match like today and you lost 3 times in a row to a guy. Naturally, your confidence is going to be a little bit shaky. But now it's time to give Fritz some credit. I've often talked in the past that Fritz is a phenomenal player, but when it comes to important matches, he doesn't perform well mentally. That is for sure not the case ever since Fritz won Indian Wells. I think that was a career-changing moment for Taylor Fritz to win a Masters Series tournament in the United States against Nadal in the final. Even though Nadal wasn't 100% fit after beating Alcaraz in the semifinals, he hurt himself a little bit, but still, Fritz won that Masters Series tournament. And from that moment on, I regarded Fritz as the number 1 American player, independent of the ranking. And in 2024, Fritz backed up his status as the best American by making the US Open Finals, which was huge. He played a clutch match against Zverev, a clutch match against TFO, and now he backs that result up with a final at the ATP Finals. The first American since James Blake to do so. And Fritz is such an interesting player. He has some unorthodoxies on both his forehand and the backhand. As already said, he has one of the best serves in the world. He's number 3 in the world in aces in 2024. And I'm going to make videos about the Fritz serve, the forehand, and the backhand. The backhand especially is very interesting. He has an unorthodox finish on a lot of his two-handed backhands, but it doesn't take away from the quality. If you saw some of those cross-court backhand exchanges with Zverev, who has one of the best two-handed backhands of all time, the Fritz two-hander is of exceptional quality. So what does Fritz have to do tomorrow to have a chance against Sinner? Well, he has to play a lot better than he did in the US Open final. See, in the first set of the US Open, Fritz did not serve well. So tomorrow, he's going to have to serve well. And not only that, he's going to have to serve close to the lines. His ace count will have to be high. See, Fritz is a player that kicks his second serve. So the first serve percentage is going to be hugely important. If Sinner gets a look on some of those second serves that are kicked, I think Sinner is going to be able to put Fritz under pressure. He's going to get looks to get breaks, and Sinner is serving so well. If that happens, if the first serve percentage is low on Fritz, this could easily be a straight set victory for Sinner.